Live from the Emerald City in Seattle, Washington, the UFO, Bigfoot, and paranormal hotspot of the Pacific Northwest. Directly to you listening in around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, occupying the captain's chair tonight for SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show and including all of our listeners on the digital side at Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always find our archive shows for free on YouTube at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Tonight we have a special show for you folks. We have Zelia Edgar and Stephen M. Ward, two cryptid and paranormal monster researchers, UFOs. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything for the bulk of our show. But of course, at the top of the hour, we always bring our good buddy, Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center on live for a report from what the heck is going on out there in the UFO sighting reports around the United States and the world. And I'm going to welcome everyone to the show tonight. We've got a big round table going on with Stephen. We got Zelia and Peter. Are you all there?
Peter's
I'm here. It's great to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Wonderful. All right, you guys. Well, this is fun. Thank you so much. You guys, it's not very often that people like us get to sit back, kick back, and relax and listen to Peter Davenport for more than 5 minutes at a time, because typically he'll come on some of the big major talk shows and give some good reports, but they seem to be pretty short. And we get to have Peter for the next 25 minutes at least. So this is our chance to ask him questions. And Peter, let's first of all just say, how have you been for the last week? And what's the weather like out there in eastern Washington where you're at?
The weather is beautiful, sunny, and not as warm as it usually is this time of year. So we're having delightful conditions.
Oh, gosh, that's wonderful. It's about time that eastern Washington earns its reputation as being the beautiful spot on the state of Washington in the summertime with, high temperatures and, out there. Oh, by the way, I'm noticing on the chat room out here, Peter, your buddy Marilyn Childs is saying hello to Peter. So she's listening in tonight.
I'm delighted to hear that she's tuned in, and I return her greetings. It's nice to know that she's listening.
Of course, Marilyn and her husband Larry used to be co-directors for Washington State MUFON for many, many decades, long time. So it's nice to see Marilyn carrying on Larry's legend after he had passed away recently back there. But nice to see you on board there, Marilyn, tonight. Thank you. Peter, why don't you go ahead and take the lead for this here? We've got Steve and Zelia just kind of on the line waiting to hear from you of what's going on out there as far as reports go this past week.
Well, I've got a bunch of them I'd like to share, but I'm in the unenviable position of having received so many reports that I've not assimilated many of them yet to the degree that I can talk about them in great detail. But I seem to recall that last Sunday I addressed reports from the 4th of July and mentioned that the 4th of July it's not a hot spot, it's a hot date, if you will, for reports. And of course, many people who are skeptical about the UFO phenomenon will argue that, well, a lot of people are outside for the fireworks, and then, of course, there are the fireworks that could be mistaken for UFOs. But I don't think so. I'm going to share a few reports here that will, I think, point out that it's not just fireworks or events related to fireworks that people are reporting. And I think I talked last week about a very dramatic event that occurred on the 4th of July in 1997. I won't repeat myself, but if people would like to read all the reports we received from Illinois and Kentucky and Missouri for that incident, they can go to our website, ufocenter.com, and read the reports. Well, the first report I'd like to share comes from Winchester, Tennessee, 9 p.m. An adult male writes that a round, stationary, glowing ball was seen in the northeast sky by 6 people, which the gentleman reports was very, very unusual in appearance. My first suspicion in a case like this is somebody was looking at a celestial body, a star or a planet, but the report goes on, and the report is posted to our website, which it was not last week. The source of the report emphasizes that it was so bizarre in appearance that he assumes that it was some kind of unusual event. It was not a star or a planet. And in light of some of the other reports I'm about to read or share with our audience, I think he's probably correct. The next report I'd like to share comes from Nebraska, Gretna, Nebraska, 9:10 p.m. A gentleman writes that a large oval-shaped UFO in the western part of the sky was visible for 10 to 15 minutes. And interestingly, it suddenly, after 10 or 15 minutes of viewing, people lost sight of it suddenly. It just seemed to wink out. So another good report. Third one I'd like to share with our audience comes from Beloit, Wisconsin. And this is the type of report that has become predominant in the stream of reports, Michael. 2 adults were outside at 9:14 p.m., again, Beloit, Wisconsin, and they saw 2 crimson-colored glowing orbs pass overhead. They estimate they saw it for about 90 seconds or so. And again, this is the type of report that I've been receiving from all across the United States, and in fact from around the world. People are reporting clusters anywhere from 2 to 200 red, orange, or yellow lights. And if I had to choose one spot in the nation that is a hot spot for this type of sighting, it would be the eastern part of South Carolina. And I think I may have mentioned this last week or in programs past. The Horry County, which is the easternmost part of South Carolina that projects out into the Atlantic Ocean, they just report frequently this type of sighting, a cluster of bizarre lights.
You know, that this is a new not a new phenomena, but this phenomenon is really catching on here. Back in gosh, a decade ago, you were always talking, Peter, about the fireballs that were streaking, the kind of orange fireballs, and they'd go by one, maybe two, but not a whole stream of them. But now you're seeming to report a lot more objects in one sighting. It's fascinating to me that people are seeing, scores of these things traveling across the sky with no sound or anything like that. It seems like they're becoming more prevalent and more of them.
There are indeed. And in fact, I will share a fact with our audience and with you, Michael. The flood of reports coming into the hotline and being submitted via our online report form at our website has become such a flood that I'm barely able to keep up with the flow and with the work level. Somehow, some way, I've got to shift gears with the National UFO Reporting Center and get a team of people doing this work instead of just one poor, hapless, overworked individual, namely I.
And I know how fastidious you are, Peter, in these reports. As they come in, you are making sure that they are readable for people, because obviously a lot of people, when they even fill in those report forms, they're not quite, using the best English or grammar or anything like that. So you got to make them understandable before you load them up to the website. So I know how hard you work on that. So thank you for all of your decades worth of, getting this information out to us. I don't know what we would have done with most of these sighting reports. Would have never been recorded at all. And I think you say typically that maybe 1 in even 20,000 reports are even reported to you. So who knows what's going on out there?
There must be a veritable sea of reports, unreported sightings by citizens that have never seen the light of day. And thank heavens they haven't reported all of them, because if I had 20,000 times the number of reports coming in, you probably wouldn't be talking to me. I'd be in the hospital.
Oh man, definitely. I know. I mean, literally, when you call into the National UFO Reporting Center hotline, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, 206-722-3000. Is that right?
That's correct.
When you call into that phone number, 206-722-3000, you will invariably get Peter Davenport picking up the phone. It's amazing how much work that he does and has done for decades out there. Stephen, you look like you're just about ready to burst asking a question. So go ahead and jump in. See if you want to ask Peter anything.
Kind of an observation. Every once in a while, Peter, people would say that, we don't hear much about UFO reports anymore. Of course, it was the mainstream media very seldom, like in the old days, they even covered Betty and Barney Hill. It was in Look magazine. But for so long, they just, every once in a while, they'll pick up on a story. But with your reporting system, and I'm sure you remember the UFO news clipping service, which unfortunately isn't available anymore.
To it for a while.
But the thing is that if people were reporting these things all the time, but seldom it would get beyond the local newspaper if they even reported it at all. So thank God we have your reporting system now, since we don't even have the UFO news clipping service where somebody can go and report these things. As Michael pointed out, this stuff seems to be going on all the time.
Yes, it is. And you've touched on an interesting point, which I like to share with my audience. And that is, curiously, in dealing with the mainstream press, as you point out correctly, Stephen, they rarely, if ever, want to touch the subject. And yet down at the local level, local or regional or city level, I'm constantly getting requests for information about the UFO phenomenon. So it's bizarre what happens to people when they have to wear a pinstripe suit to collect and disseminate the news. They seem to develop an antipathy for touching on the UFO subject.
And of course, Peter, so often, and it's at the end of a local news broadcast, for a little bit of humor, they'll throw in the UFO report.
Oh yes, with the cocked eyebrow and the curl of the lip. Yeah, I've been treated to it on many occasions. I think if we stick to our guns, we ufologists are going to prevail. We'll have the last laugh. So.
Yeah. And Zelia, you've been involved in MUFON yourself. I'm sure you've run across Peter at some of the conventions, or at least his reporting center yourself.
Oh, I've definitely familiar with his work. And actually, I do have a quick question kind of on the topic, just of, how the UFO phenomenon is perceived. Just with the sheer number of reports, it's something that I've always been curious about. Do you think more people than not have had a UFO experience at some point in their lives?
if I had to guess, I would say probably 20 or 30% of adult, competent, clear-thinking American citizens have seen something that quite likely was a UFO or had some kind of experience with a UFO. Getting them to report it, though, is one of the hardest jobs I've ever had in my life. Trying to convince a person that he or she should not just talk about the sighting, but they should write it down and report it to an organization like the National UFO Reporting Center or MUFON or UFOs Northwest. There are many agencies like mine that can accept those reports. That is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, is try to convince people that in order to capture the information surrounding their sighting, they've got to do a little work. They have to write it down. Just chit-chatting, as I often call it, about a UFO sighting doesn't do the trick. It doesn't serve to capture the information.
I don't know how many times I've been to conferences with Peter, kind of as his wingman, and extricating him from long conversations of people that just want to come up and tell him this weird story that happened to them. And then, of course, Peter will ask him, well, have you reported it in writing anywhere? And they say, no, I just wanted to tell you this. And I'm okay. And I give Peter the high sign and say, okay, look, we've got to go in on interviewers. We try to extricate him out of there so he can have a good evening, for the rest of the night. But it's funny. People just want to tell you about it. They don't want to write it up.
It's a type of expiation of some sort. They just have a catharsis. They've just got to tell somebody that they think will listen. And I'm the person they often choose to do that. And I have to admit, I've become fairly blunt on the hotline. And I ask up front, within 15 to 30 seconds of the beginning of the phone call, whether the person is willing to write it all down and submit a formal written report. And if they say no to that, I will usually try to bring the conversation to an end. There's just no advantage to talking about these things without a follow-up written report.
Yeah, because you're all about the data, which is really cool. You go to the National UFO Reporting Center. You can search these sighting reports by geographic area, your own hometown even, by shape of the object, the time, the date. It's just very friendly as far as the data goes. So thank you for all of that, Peter. By the way, I wanted to mention before we got off the air here tonight with you is that, the brand new season of Unidentified just started up last night. My gosh, that was a pretty hard-hitting episode they had last night regarding the Tic Tac UFOs, the Navy, and the Air Force, coming across these things that are unexplainable now. So I would imagine you're going to be as busy as ever, Peter, during this summer season with all these new television series coming online and people piquing their interest again in the subject.
Yeah, I've often observed that a program like that can give rise to a pulse of reports. What I think it does is it conditions people to think that, well, it might be okay for me to submit my report of my sighting. And in fact, on that point, I'd like to emphasize for the benefit of our listeners that if they've ever had a UFO sighting at any time in their lives, whether it was 8 minutes ago or 8 decades ago, that is important information that they're in possession of, and I encourage them to write it down and report it to the National UFO Reporting Center before they leave the planet. How many times have I heard people talk about the sighting their parents shared with them for years and decades, but their parents never wrote it down?
Yeah.
And all that information goes out the window.
Yeah, it is very important. Matter of fact, on the episode of Unidentified last night, there were a couple of old sighting reports from military pilots from the Vietnam era that were highlighted in that episode. So it just goes to show you that it is very important that these things get reported on a routine basis. And by the way, Peter, I want to make sure that I extend the offer to you as well, as if there are any whistleblowers that contact you out there, or people that have some sighting reports that they want to get out to the public one day. Maybe they don't want to do it during their lifetime. As you well know, I've created for yourself a disclosure trust to disclose things in the future. If they want to make sure that they're going to be disclosed, but they don't want to necessarily break a security oath at this point, or they want to do it after their death or whatever, the disclosure trust is available for people that have those reports as well.
Yeah, that's a wonderful service you provide. And I don't know how many times I've had people call me and want to talk or write about their sightings, but they don't want the information released. So
yeah,
I have a number of reports in the database that I can't publish publicly at the request of the people who provided the information.
Yeah, that's always frustrating. But we try, at least that's what we've done with yourself as well, Peter, is that those things that are so important that need to get out eventually have to be preserved somehow. So we can accommodate whatever they think would be appropriate in getting the information out in a third-party entity called a trust. So anyway,
service, Michael.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was something that I just kind of morphed into after 30-some years of estate planning as an attorney. I'm going, wait a minute, this could be useful for folks. Well, we've got about 2 more minutes, enough for maybe another report, and or then we need to tell people how they can get a hold of you, and or send maybe a small donation to the National UFO Reporting Center, like we always try to encourage people to do. $5-10 here and there would really help on the efforts that you put in for all these decades of work.
Well, thank you for doing that. I do have 1 or 2 other reports here I'd like to share. Again, from the 4th of July, I'm focusing on that date, obviously, but this report comes from a gentleman I spoke with at great length, Belmar, New Jersey, 9:30 p.m., the 4th of July, 2020. The gentleman writes that 5 adults report having witnessed a spherical object pass directly over their heads at very high speed. It was visible, went from horizon to horizon approximately in about 15 seconds or so. And the interesting thing is that as it passed overhead, its color was changing dramatically. He doesn't enumerate the colors or describe them in great detail, but he says it was a very dramatic, visible, unambiguous changing of colors as the object streaked overhead. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in reading reports to go to our website, ufocenter.com, and just start reading the reports for the 4th of July. It's really a mishmash of bizarre experiences that people had on that date. And again, I'd like to leave our audience by emphasizing that this is not just a one-time occurrence. This appears to occur every 4th of July, and that has been the case for about the last 23 years at least. So
yeah, and let's make sure you give out that P.O. box again, Peter, if people want to send you a check or money order.
Yeah, thank you. Contact information for us is the hotline, as you mentioned earlier in the program, is 206-722-3000, and our mailing address in Davenport, Washington is P.O. Box 700, Davenport, Washington 99122. That's National UFO Reporting Center, P.O. Box 700, Davenport, Washington 99122. So if people would like to send us a few bucks to pay our telephone bill and our internet hookup, I would be most grateful.
Well, we are most grateful for you, Peter, here coming on Spaced Out Sunday as you do every Sunday night. Thank you for the reports. Thank you, Zelia and Steve, for hanging in there with us and co-hosting Peter Davenport. We're going to be right back in about 6 minutes, so we'll take our break at the bottom of the hour. Thanks, Peter. Talk to you later.
Good night.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans. It's John Reza, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Need that weekend's supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Zelia Edgar is a researcher, blogger, podcaster, and a YouTube vlogger. She has also been the Wisconsin State Director for MUFON, and I am pretty sure that she holds the title as the youngest state director in that organization ever. Zelia has been exploring the paranormal, both the cases she has researched as well as her own experiences and those of her family, through the lens of the Fortean author John Keel. She runs a blog entitled Just Another Tinfoil Hat, and you can find her podcast and videos there. Stephen M. Ward has been fascinated by the unexplained for over half a century. Not an experiencer himself, he was introduced to UFOs and the paranormal by the books of Frank Edwards. Later, there would be two events that would have a major influence on Steve that would determine his future path. Growing up in Michigan, the March 1966 UFO flap occurred virtually in his own backyard. The best, however, was yet to come. The following November, a winged humanoid chased two couples down a lonely country road near Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The story hit the wire services, and the legend of the Mothman was born. In a way, Steve would be chasing the Mothman for the rest of his life, influenced early on by the works of John Keel and Jacques Vallée. His views on UFOs became unconventional as he moved more towards the paranormal explanation. Well, here we are, you guys. Steve and Zelia, thank you for joining us here on Spaced Out Sunday.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, you guys, between the two of you, you've got the young and you've got the bold and the beautiful and the old and the wonderful going on, I think, here. Do you guys appear periodically together as a tag team, kind of a group of paranormals?
Yeah,
every now and again. Oh, sorry, Steve.
No,
whenever
that's
we
all
can
right.
guest together is always a super fantastic show for me. So.
Yeah, we met at the Van Meter Visitor Festival. Van Meter is just west of Des Moines, Iowa, and there was a series of strange events that happened there back in 1903, and they have a festival to commemorate it. It's another winged creature kind of a thing. But we both spoke there, and we both discovered that we're kind of on the same wavelength in many areas, both followers of John Keel. So it may be scary to some to think that we're on the same wavelength. Zelia has much more time to get take therapy if she needs it, but I'm too old for it. So.
Well, I tell you what, the followers of John Keel have either been through a lot of therapy probably or should at one point. Let's explain to our listeners who might, some of these young millennials out there and Zoomers and stuff, they might not even know who the legendary author John Keel is. Who wants to jump on board and kind of give us a little background of him?
I think Zelia does.
Boy, John Keel, how can you even really sum up who he was? He is, in my mind, one of the most influential thinkers probably of all time on, every apparently different genre of the paranormal or unexplained. I know that, for me at least, reading his work really it absolutely changed the paradigm of how I looked at the, again, apparently separate fields of ufology, spectrology, and cryptozoology. He really popularized kind of the concept that these things are really connected, that they share a lot of different patterns between them. With his theories, especially on the superspectrum and the literary device of the ultra-terrestrials. So, yeah, he's just, he's seriously one of my all-time favorite researchers.
I like the way you, that rolls off your tongue, Zelia. Ufology, spectrology, and cryptology. That covers the whole gamut right there, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, it's one of those things where I've been interested in, the broad spectrum of the paranormal forever. And I came at it from a very, separate way of looking at things. And cryptozoology was like my first love with it. I was really, really interested in that. And then it kind of branched into, the other fields. But again, throughout, my mid-teen years, I really looked at it as, okay, well, you have ghosts, and they're like, the spirits of the deceased or whatever. And you have cryptids that are simply undiscovered creatures. And then you have UFOs, which are definitely extraterrestrial spacecraft. And then reading the works of John Keel, it just absolutely kind of shifted everything to where, you can start seeing that there are similar narratives or similar patterns that are played out in these apparently separate encounters. So, yeah, I've definitely converted to the Church of John Keel, as Steve often says.
Well, that's very apropos. Most people will peg John Keel to the Mothman Prophecies movie, which was earth-shattering and kind of groundbreaking, I think, for me at the time, with the idea that ufology and cryptology and the lore of monsters were all seemingly tied up in this one event that happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And all of a sudden, the Mothman thing was, there was psychic events going on. There were prophecy events going on at that time. And John Keel was just amazing the way he wrote the tale that was then picked up into a screenplay, quite an amazing film.
Oh, yeah. Truthfully, in my opinion, the events of Point Pleasant between, November of 66 and December of 67, they are just kind of in a league of their own as far as the sheer magnitude of unexplained phenomena that was going on. And it's true, it absolutely covered, every single different field in a way that really, it's crazy because actually when I first read the book, that was, it was the first book I read knowing it was John Keel. The actual first John Keel book I read was when I was 8 or 9 years old. It was The Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings. I had no idea it was considered fringe. I was just looking for any cryptozoology book I could find. So I wonder how much of that has worked into my subconscious.
I didn't know that. You were only 8 or 9 when you read that. Wow.
Yeah. I know. John Keel's been with me for a long time. I just wasn't aware of it.
Now,
the Mothman sorry, go on.
Now, Zelia, as an 8 and 9 year old girl, tell us where you were and tell us a little bit about your family and why an 8-year-old inquisitive young woman like yourself would have even been interested in reading about cryptid. I think a lot of the young girls, at least when I was a kid, were into Disney. They're into like the fairies and that kind of stuff. And you didn't go there, it sounds like.
Not at all. No, I have just, I've always really liked kind of weird stuff. So like the paranormal has been a lifelong interest for me. And surprisingly enough, I've also had a lifelong history of paranormal experiences, which I, until recently, never tied together. I was like, the interest and the experiences, they were totally separate for me. But no, so I've just been interested in the unexplained literally since I can remember. And then when I was 8 years old, my mom actually thought that it would be fun to get me interested in Bigfoot. Because, she had grown up, in the 70s and remembered that it was kind of a fun, scary thing that she was into. At the time, she was like, oh, it's an urban legend. No one believes in Bigfoot anymore. Well, it's ironic because she got me interested in it. And not only did that, that's when I absolutely took off with an actual interest in the paranormal. Ever since that time, I have been researching it pretty seriously. It's a huge part of my life. And then simultaneously, she started looking into it. She's like, oh, this isn't just an urban legend. This is actually, a real phenomenon that people, experience and see, and there's a lot of evidence for it. So now she actually has a pretty devout interest in Sasquatch and that whole phenomenon as well. So that was kind of the turning point for me. And like I said, at that point, cryptozoology was like, I was so intrigued by that. So I literally went to the library and found every single book I could find on the topic, which included The Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings. And then when I was 10, I met the Wisconsin author Linda Godfrey, who writes on the man-wolf and dog-man phenomenon. And that was just another kind of life-changing moment for me that, here's someone who's taking this seriously, an adult that's really researching this and, helping people. I think it's a really great service to try and understand the unexplained. And then about a year later, I met another Wisconsin researcher, Chad Lewis, who does all the haunted road guides to different states and locations and stuff like that. And the rest is kind of history. I've grown up having paranormal researchers as, my idols. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. and then you hook up with Steve Ward, another idol in the community, and basically, how did you guys hook up together?
Well, it's kind of funny because we both presented. I had actually seen part of Steve's presentation the previous year at the Van Meter Visitor Festival, and I only caught part of it, but I remember seeing this. I was like, well, this guy likes John Keel. This is really cool. This is fantastic. And so then, flashback to the next year, which was last year, 2019, and we both presented. And the hilarious thing is that we actually used the exact same account as a reference in each of our presentations. The Wallington, West Virginia Sasquatch encounter, where this being apparently stopped a guy's car. That's kind of a longer story. And so, I was presenting and I saw him in the audience, and actually he helped me because my microphone I was having quite a hard time with it. So he came up and helped me out. And I remember seeing him in the audience thinking, that's the guy that likes Keel, so I really hope I'm impressing him. And then the rest is kind of history. We got to talking and we're both, really on the same page with a lot of this stuff. And it's super exciting because, the paranormal is kind of a niche already. And then when you like kind of the more fringe stuff, it's so exciting to meet someone who is open to those ideas as well. So.
Oh man. Yeah, that sounds interesting. And obviously, Steve, you're a little older than Zelia. I bet you were pretty impressed when this young, good-looking girl comes up to you and is interested in what you're interested in.
Well, I'm just a skosh older. Actually, I'm about 3 times older than Zelia, just to put it in perspective. But yes, I saw her. Very impressed. She's a very good presenter, and she had a very different presentation. But we both, strangely enough, had this one very obscure Bigfoot report where the combustion engine of a car seemed to stop in proximity of a Bigfoot in the same way that a close proximity of a UFO does. But like Zelia says, that's a longer story. But I started listening to her, and I thought I was sitting next to another young lady who is also a co-host on my radio show, like Zelia is at times. And I said, it sounds like she's familiar with John Keel. And then she started talking about the superspectrum, which is this idea that John Keel talks about kind of a literary device, but he's trying to come to grips with what this energy is that's causing all this. And then she started talking about some of these books that influenced her, like Strange Creatures from Time and Space, also known as The Guide to Mysterious Beings, and UFOs, Operation Trojan Horse, which was the big book that influenced me. So yeah, it was just really great to see someone that young following kind of the same path I did at just about that same age.
Oh, that's fascinating. And isn't it interesting that both of you guys had kind of centered in on one account of a Bigfoot that affected the combustion engine of an automobile from different generations? Both of you were interested. You know what? Before we go any further, I'd like one of you, or maybe even both of you, to kind of relay that story, because that sounds like a fascinating cryptid story. I've never heard of a Bigfoot affecting an automobile before. You might want to give us a few minutes of what that story is all about.
Zelia, did you want to go with that, or would you like me to? Or
yeah, either way. I mean, it's pretty funny because we both used that. And I know it's a very bizarre account. You'll probably need to correct me on the date, but it was in West Virginia,
middle
in 1963. Yeah, about 63, I think. And this guy named Doc Priestley was actually following his buddies who were in a bus. So they were kind of caravanning, and so he was following them. They were just outside of a national forest, I believe, and all of a sudden his engine stopped. And so, he kind of pulled over, and he looked to the side of the road, and there is this Bigfoot-like creature, which had been reported in the area prior to that, standing there with its hair all standing on end. So, okay, his car stops, he's seeing this mysterious creature. That's weird enough. Well, the bus finally realized that he wasn't following him. So they, turned around, kind of regrouped, and the creature ran off. Apparently it was frightened of the bus or more people or whatever. So, then his engine was fine. He was like, okay, well, this is fine. So they all start off again. He's still following his friends in the bus. And all of a sudden his engine shorts again. And he looks to the side of the road, and there's his old friend, the strange Sasquatch-like creature with its hair still standing on end. Now, I don't really know if his friends came back from that time. I hope they did, because his car apparently was absolutely fried from that point on. So again, it's a very bizarre account because, sure, we could say that it's coincidental that, this Bigfoot is just happening to be standing there at the same moment that his car shorts out twice. But, it's one of those things where sometimes coincidence isn't exactly the right word, in my opinion at least.
Well, there is, if you explore the Bigfoot phenomenon, and there are, you get into a lot of paranormal overtones. A lot of people want Bigfoot to be purely a flesh and blood creature, but it seems that there's a lot of very mysterious trappings connected with it. And so, and also, this Doc Priestley, you wonder, if you're going to spin a tale like this, aren't you just going to say, "Yeah, we saw this Bigfoot"? Are you going to, spin this wild tale that his engine stalled when he saw this thing? There's a couple other reports of being in close proximity of cryptids where the engine stalls. Not too many, but even if you're familiar with Ron Moorhead, he's the Bigfoot researcher out in Washington State that captured the Sierra Sounds. Well, often they have tried to get more recordings with digital recorders and cameras, and often the batteries will drain in proximity of the Bigfoot. So kind of the same phenomena. It's that you can find the battery drain phenomena and ghostly phenomena with Loch Ness, with Bigfoot, and the same thing with cameras jamming at an inopportune point. So there's something there beyond the mere physical or nuts and bolts aspect.
Oh, definitely. That is fascinating. I love those stories. Matter of fact, Ron Moorhead is a good, close personal friend of mine. Lives out there in Sequim on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State. And people don't understand what Sequim is like. Sequim literally is in the rain shadow of the Olympic Mountains and is one of the driest places in the United States. In the state of Washington, it's the weirdest thing. It's almost like you're living in this little tropical place on the Olympic Peninsula, and that's where Ron and his lovely wife, Liv. And, of course, the Olympic Peninsula is like ground zero for Sasquatch on the planet, as far as the number of sighting reports and all those kinds of historical things as well. But, I've got a couple questions that I'm going to ask right away on this story because I love the details that come out in these things. First of all, it occurred to me that potentially the bus that Doc Priestley was traveling might have been diesel, right? Could have been a diesel engine and maybe not affected by whatever the effect was on the gas combustion engine of the car. Do you think there was a difference there?
Possibly. The bus was, as I understand it, was a little ways ahead of him. So perhaps it wasn't affected, or perhaps the Bigfoot just stepped out at the inopportune time for him to affect his vehicle.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure of the logistics of how it was set up.
Good point. And then the interesting other thing was that that report notes that the hair on this Bigfoot was standing straight up. That seems to be anomalous. I've never heard that kind of report from anybody in a Bigfoot sighting. So that leads you to think that there was some kind of electromagnetic or electrostatic, charge in the area there. Is that what you kind of got out of that sighting as well?
Yes, for that answering for me, yeah, I think that's again, it's a very bizarre sighting, and if I was going to make up a Bigfoot sighting, I wouldn't be talking about hair standing up on end or my car stalling. I would go a little more conventional. But there are just a lot of. There was another instance in I think near Battle Creek, California, in the mid '70s. Where some kids were out, and it wasn't exactly a Bigfoot. It was a Bigfoot-like creature. It was kind of big. It was hairless, and the kids saw that in the woods. They took off, and then they were having a very difficult time getting their car started. Now, I don't know if we can say that the proximity of the creature was causing it, or if it was like the script in a bad movie where the cars never start when they're running away from the monster.
Right.
But the thing is, they went back and they told one of the fathers about it, and he thought it was a joke at first. But he saw the look of terror on their face, so they went back to the area, and they heard some growling and so forth. But the first time they took off, they saw strange lights kind of following them, like little flare lights following them on the road. And so some of these, when you get into some of these reports, the high strangeness goes up to a really high level. And it just goes somewhere beyond Ron Moorhead will tell you. I had a chance to meet him a couple times at different conferences, and a great guy.
Yeah.
But he made the journey from believing this was he was out there in 1973 in the Sierra Nevadas capturing these recordings, and these spectacular recordings which have been examined. And then in his more recent book is called Quantum Bigfoot, and he states right in his book that Bigfoot is interdimensional. So here's a guy that's a very rational individual that has studied these things, that has come to the conclusion that there's something beyond a mere flesh and blood cryptid.
Yes, exactly. And, I head and founded the group called the UFO I-Team. So Ron has been very involved in our group as well, because he really believes there's some kind of connection between the UFO phenomena and Bigfoot as well. I don't know how many reports, not a lot, but I've heard reports of people saying literally the Bigfoot was sighted in close proximity to a UFO sighting as well, that could have something to do with the potential, electromagnetic effects of vehicles and all that kind of stuff. So I think Jacques Vallée is going to be proven correct here, is that it's going to be very interesting when we find out that all of this stuff is connected somehow, not just extraterrestrial, but potentially extra-dimensional as well.
And that brings us back to John Keel's vision. When I started out, I was reading books, like Frank Edwards, but also remember Jim and Cora Lorenzen of APRO. Yes, and they kind of broke ground when they started writing books on the not just the landings and the craft, but seeing the entities, the classic Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yes,
as Dr. Hynek would say.
Exactly.
And I was very happy with that. Little aliens in their silver suits visiting us and collecting soil samples. And then I came across, well, originally there was the book Strange Creatures from Time and Space, where Keel starts talking about these window areas and trying to come to grips with why all these different things are happening in the same area. And then when I read UFOs Operation Trojan Horse, is the book where he really brings all these things together. It took me a while to adjust to that. I was not, I did not make an easy transition because I was kind of happy with my own little private paradigm of aliens coming from other planets.
Yeah, we kind of get stuck in our progression sometimes. Well, listen, you guys, we're going to take a break now at the top of the hour, and we are going to take another 6-minute break and be back with Spaced Out Sunday and Zelia Edgar and Steve Ward in just a moment.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is watching.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
And we are back. Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, the paranormal lawyer, Michael W. Hall. Thanks for joining me. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And on the digital side, we are very proud to be on Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can always check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and so much more. And we are here having a fascinating show with some paranormal researchers, Zelia Edgar and Stephen M. Ward. You guys, thank you for being with me tonight on Spaced Out Sunday. Are you enjoying yourself so far?
Oh, totally.
Great. I really appreciate the idea that I can pick you guys' brains from all your experience out there in the various areas that you guys have been researching in, and of course John Keel and Jacques Vallée, and all these strange tales that have been coming out of UFO and cryptid and the history of all of these things, spectrology and everything. I love it. This is fascinating stuff. Now, Zelia, did you actually grow up with any siblings in your family? It sounds like your mother got you into this initially, but anybody else in your family at that point?
Oh yeah, well I'm the oldest of three girls, so I've got two younger sisters, and the middle one does not like this stuff at all. The younger one, she's kind of interested. At least I got her to read the Mothman prophecies, so I'm hoping that I can pass on some of this knowledge. But yeah, no, my mom has been, we're both just really interested. Again, she's really, really focused more on cryptozoology. And then actually a lot of my extended family on my mom's side is also kind of has passing interest in the paranormal. And that too has a lot to do with the fact that it's interesting because I know Keel discusses the possibility that paranormal experiences can possibly follow certain bloodlines or families, kind of.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because a lot of members of my extended family have also had, paranormal experiences here and there, probably a little bit more than your average number of UFO sightings. The house where Mom grew up was a really classic haunted house type scenario. My grandma remembers when she was a kid, someone in the neighborhood having a possible Bigfoot encounter. So, there is kind of a general interest among my family members. Not as super devout as I've developed, but it's definitely there. It's definitely present.
How would you characterize your father and his family as far as this interest or experience? Is there any interest at all in his side of the gene pool?
Oh, none whatsoever. My stepdad, on the other hand, my stepdad has been, really encouraging though. So, he has an interest in it too, which is always fun. My dad was, the paranormal was all quite a big no in his book. So, isn't
that interesting? I find that as well, is that it seems to be one family lineage melding in with another family lineage. It doesn't seem to be an equal dose from either side. There always seems to be one stronger than the other influence, in maybe that kind of thing where it could be a generational thing. Of course, there's the DNA aspect of the whole thing. The Rh negative blood, comes into the whole thing. A lot of people have got some theories on that whole idea. So, how about you, Steve? Did you have any siblings that went or were interested in what you were interested in as well? Oh, you're muted. Let's get you unmuted.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yep, there you go.
Oh, that's good. Okay. My sister was somewhat interested. My parents a little bit, but by far I was the one that had certain issues with into the stuff. I was the children. Do you remember a TV Guide? What that was like? I remember getting the TV Guide as a kid.
Yeah.
And going and marking. There was a section where you could look at all the movies that were coming up for the week. Well, I would circle everything, the science fiction, horror related, anything like that. And man, you had to be there in the old days to watch these things when they came on. You couldn't record them. You had to suffer through commercials and all that. So I had an interest in the odd science fiction and all that from an early age. So the discovering UFOs and the incident in March of 1966, where we had the wave of sightings in Michigan that were some labeled swamp gas, was a real trigger, I think. And that year of 66, the following November, was one of the first sightings of the Mothman in the Point Pleasant area.
Yeah.
So
by the way, Steve, let's do this. There is a group of people out there that have no clue how pivotal the Michigan sightings in 1966 were for Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Let's get into that whole idea. You remember where at one point the swamp gas thing just blew up in his face because he was asked to go out by Project Blue Book to debunk the Michigan sightings in that area, right? You can tell the story better than I can, I would imagine. It was your neck of the woods that happened, and I'll throw in a few extra things myself just because you and I kind of come from the same generational area and remember what happened in that. But that was a pivotal spot in ufology, 1966 in Michigan.
Well, this was, of course, the real Dr. Hynek and not the fictional one that's been portrayed on TV.
Yeah.
Much, very, very painfully portrayed, by the way. But he was still attached. He was an astronomer. He was attached to Project Blue Book, and that was kind of his role, was to debunk these sightings. And but the thing is that he, over a period of time, when he was talking to these witnesses, he began to believe there was really something to it. Well, this wave of sightings hit Michigan. Now, there were a lot of professionals. There were police officers that were seeing these things flying low overhead. There was a major sighting at the Frank Manor Farm in Dexter, Michigan, which is right near Ann Arbor. And so he came in. There was this big press conference, and he suggested that some of the sightings in Hillsdale, and there was a girls' college there at the time, some of the sightings might have been attributable to swamp gas. And, of course, the press had their answer for all time. All UFOs are swamp gas. And it's funny because 10 years later, now this is long after he, like John Keel says, became one of the good guys. He left Blue Book. He started the Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois. And he spoke at the 1976 MUFON Symposium in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which I could actually get to, being a kid that had a Carmen Ghia car and not much money, but it wasn't very far from where I lived.
Nice.
And he had this great talk. It was called Swamp Gas Plus 10 and Counting. And he talked about, the mistakes he made and the things he was doing now. And he showed some hilarious cartoons of based on the swamp gas thing, where you see the aliens accosting a human on the sidewalk with their big ray guns and everything, and they say, "Take us to the one that called us swamp gas." he had quite a good time, and I have that on recording. I transferred it on a CD, from cassettes that I was recording at the time. So,
oh wow!
It was great to meet him and see him in person, and Jacques Vallée was supposed to speak at that same conference, but he was not able to make it. So he was the other guy after Keel. I had barely recovered from reading UFO's Operation Trojan Horse when I discovered Passport to Magonia. And so by that time, there was no going back.
Well, and let's flesh out the story also in Michigan when Alan Hynek made that statement that literally, it was the first time, I think, since, it was 1966. In the 50s, people were kind of taking it from Blue Book, and they were getting debunked right and left. Finally, at one point, it was the law enforcement in Michigan that just stood up and said, wait a minute here. You're coming up here in our neck of the woods. You don't know anything about Michigan. You don't even probably know what swamp gas looks like. We know what it looks like. It wasn't swamp gas. And Congressman Gerald Ford picked up the gauntlet, right? You want to tell him what happened with the eventual president of the United States, what he did?
Well, he insisted that they take it seriously, as I recall. He said, look, these people are credible people, and he didn't want it taken lightly. And you might remember this a little bit better than I do, but he insisted that they look at it seriously and have a serious investigation.
And literally, they had congressional hearings for the first time ever, before or since. Never had it since, which maybe we're heading towards now, with the Senate Intelligence Oversight Committee. That could be the next cool thing. But can you imagine back in 1966, Gerald Ford sponsored the first congressional hearings. And of course, everybody and their brother showed up at that thing. Peter Davenport was there. All the famous ufologists at the time showed up to said, there's something to this. But I wanted to point out how pivotal Michigan played in the whole history of ufology to get things serious after that whole debunking event, by Dr. J. Allen Hynek. That is a fascinating part of history that UFO research needs to know about. Even, the young guns out there probably don't even know about that event. And I always like to kind of bring it up every once in a while. Zelia, now you know.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so that's fascinating stuff. So you literally then kind of got immersed in it was it always up in that neck of the woods that, you were able to kind of use as your base there, Steve?
At that time I was a kid in junior high, so I was not did not have any wheels where I could go out and play UFO investigator. Well, of course, we had the obligatory. We had a UFO club when we were in high school.
All right.
There were four of us. Two of the guys were a little more enterprising. They created a sort of a fanzine, a amateur magazine called the UFO Phenomenon, which actually you can find a copy on the Mothman in the Mothman Museum, which I donated.
Oh, my.
So it was not a bad little amateur magazine for the time. Now, later on, some years later, I got involved with another group, but it was informal. We didn't have a name or anything like that. It had some professional people involved. And actually, my first interview on a radio station was in about 1976 in Ionia, Michigan, which is actually a real place. And the four of us were there, in studio, obviously, all hooked up, and we were asked questions about UFOs. So, I didn't have any access to actually go out and talk to people and so forth. So I had to, collect reports and clippings. And, back in those days, the late 60s and throughout the 70s was a great time for the UFO publications. And I mentioned with Peter Davenport on what they had, the UFO news clipping service, which was such a great resource, and unfortunately it doesn't exist anymore. But that way you found all these great clippings from all these local areas, and you found that cryptids and UFOs were actually being reported all the time, just not everywhere at one time, and usually not picked up by the mainstream press.
Yeah. And Zelia, if you can relate to this, Google will allow you to, if you're interested in a certain subject, they'll send you, certain things on a notification basis. This clipping service was so cool. Literally, you'd pay them, I don't know, $20 every once in a while or something like that. It was not too expensive. And they would scour all the newspapers of the entire country.
Right.
For if you're interested in Bigfoot or UFOs or whatever, and in the mail would come an manila envelope with the real article from the local newspaper in a hard copy cut out of the newspaper. So it was a newspaper clipping service. It was just well beyond the pale at that point, because this was not someone writing a book. This was not the National Enquirer magazine. This was from the local newspaper reporters reporting real events.
Yeah, I think it was $5 a month.
I think that is seriously the coolest thing. To be totally honest, I do sometimes feel like I was born at the wrong time to be investigating this stuff. But I think back to just how, there were just so many publications, and the newspaper clipping services of like the 60s and 70s. That really seems kind of like a golden age. It's just fantastic.
That in comic books, right, Stephen?
Oh, there you go. Yes, I actually have quite an archive here. I've been, from time to time, I will make copies and send articles, and if I have any duplicates, to Zelia, so she can get a good taste of what it was like back then. I also have a pretty good selection of the newspaper UFO news clipping service from parts of the 60s, parts of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So there's quite a resource in there if you can read it all and process it all. But there's so much here that it just takes forever.
And we would actually buy those big old honking scrapbooks. Normally people would have family photos in. But I would put those newspaper clippings in there, and I would put little tabs in them and stuff. I don't know where they are now, but can you imagine having those things again? And go through those old yellowing newsprint.
I've got one like that in the attic with the astronauts back in the early 60s. Glenn and original newspaper articles. So I do have that.
Oh, that's fascinating to me. I'm fascinated with the JFK assassination, with the astronauts and whether indeed they landed on the moon in 1969. That whole thing. I'm into all those conspiracy theories. So it's fascinating. Zelia, what is your favorite thing that really gets you excited when someone calls you and says, "Hey, I got this thing I'd really like you to check out"? What is that for you in your era?
Oh boy, that is a very difficult question. Is what that is.
Well, would it be ghosts? Would it be Bigfoot? Would it be cryptids? Is there a certain thing that you really just drop everything and go for, or do you just pretty much do the whole thing across the board?
At this point, my interests are pretty much just kind of everything, because I'm really, the thing that really gets me excited is when I can start seeing how things kind of relate to one another, across these different genres that we've kind of imposed on the phenomenon. I think, unfortunately, I'm still really much on the research side of things. I'm starting to get, actual reports coming into my website, which is fantastic. So if people want to send me their experiences, I would be more than happy to collect them, because I do really want to start getting into the more investigation side of things. I think that probably, old habits die hard. Something that falls into the cryptid category is just kind of takes the cake for me. I don't know. It's just, there's something very, again, a lot of it's nostalgia. That was my first real interest in the paranormal. But then another part of it too, the monsters that people have reported throughout all time. It's something that's just, there's something really compelling to me about that. That or entity cases with UFOs, UFO occupants.
Yeah.
Again, here I am. I'm pretty much saying everything's interesting because it is. But I guess right now, this moment, cryptids definitely kind of take the cake.
Well, I'll bet you're fascinated with this. It just, for some reason, hit my brain. Do you realize that Mary Shelley, who wrote the novel Frankenstein, do you know the story behind that young woman who came up with that fantastic novel that started a whole monster cryptid, phase of science fiction? Do you know anything about Mary Shelley?
I know bits and pieces, and I'll say right off the bat, Frankenstein is one of my all-time favorite books. I absolutely just love it.
And the reason I brought that up is that you remind me a whole lot of this Mary Shelley character. She was married to an older gentleman, not an older gentleman, a gentleman older than her, who was a famous poet, Shelley, the poet. Mm-hmm. And these guys ran in circles that are like highbrow artists community in Europe and all that kind of stuff. At one point, they're on vacation in Vienna somewhere, something like that. And they're bored one summer because the weather was terrible. So they all decided, the poet, Shelley, and a couple other famous writers were with them during this retreat. They decided they're all going to come up with a short horror story. Okay. And of course, the young Mary Shelley, being like, kind of the timid wife of, a very famous author, decided that she was going to try to jump in and, go along with the crowd. Come to find out that she wrote that story that summer high up in the Alps, and she was the only person to actually finish a horror story. And she wrote that you've read the book, but the whole idea is that I had no clue when I first came up with the idea that Frankenstein was such an amazing story that it was written by a young woman at the time. She was a phenomenal writer.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you. That is a very high compliment. Because like I said, Frankenstein, it is just, it reinvented, so much by the way of like science fiction, horror, and just the ideas that it captures in it. It's one of my all-time favorite books.
Zelia, you're going to love this. One of my first professional jobs out of college was being a tour guide at Universal Studios. Okay.
Oh, great!
Oh, seriously.
I literally have hanging on my wall right now the life mask of Boris Karloff that they used to create the appliance piece for the Frankenstein head mask. As a tour guide, you get to rummage around some of these old stuff, and I convinced some of these old makeup artist guys that they were going to throw away these old plaster of Paris life masks. One of them was Boris Karloff. It's sitting on my wall, and literally that is the life mask of the gentleman who played Frankenstein, of course, for many, many decades, and whose appliance piece, they had to take a whole, mold of his face to get this appliance piece to fit on his face with the bolts and the whole thing, the highbrow. Anyway, I just had to throw that out because now we got to go to a break again for the next bottom of the hour, and we will be right back with more Spaced Out Sunday, folks, and we'll be 6 minutes away. Bye.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docu-series featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Kasher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website, and let's figure out what's going on together.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
And we are back here, Spaced Out Sunday, with Steve Ward and Zelia Edgar. You guys, you're not going to believe, I want to make sure that I back up what I say, if I can, anytime that's possible anyway. I brought Boris down to show you. I don't know, Steve.
Oh my word.
I don't know if you can see this, Zelia, but this is the life mask from Boris Karloff.
That is so unbelievably cool.
From Universal Studios. Back in probably, I'm thinking this is probably from the 1940s, maybe in the mid-30s. You know, when Frankenstein was actually first made, right? And literally, there's a little hook on the back. I can hang it on my wall. And this is back in the old days when the Westmores were the big makeup artists. You know, they would take a life mask. They would actually take a couple straws and put them up your nostrils, just a little ways up there so you could breathe. Okay. Then they would actually coat your entire face with plaster of Paris or some kind of rubberized thing. This is a plaster of Paris version then of the mold itself. So I wanted just to let you realize that this is actually it. That's Boris.
That is so neat.
Well, Mary Shelley gave Boris quite a career as well.
Oh my. Can you imagine? Literally, and the gentleman was a big guy, big actor. And there wasn't a lot of roles for big actors back in those days. Literally, Charlie Chaplin, these famous guys, many of the comedians and stuff, Al Jolson, these are small men. All of a sudden, Boris Karloff has a gig like that. It can last for generations,
Remember the Body Snatchers that he was in? I was at a Monster Bash, which is kind of like a Comic-Con, and I can't remember the name of the actress, but she played the little girl in that film. And,
yes.
He was reminiscing about what a gentle man he was and how much she loved working with him on that film. Her name escapes me. You know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're talking about. The little girl who goes up to the monster with a flower, literally.
No, this is actually in the Body Snatchers.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Body Snatchers. Okay,
right.
Because the same thing happened in the Frankenstein film as well.
Right.
Oh, cool. That would have been fun to go to. Yeah, awesome.
And then my claim to fame briefly is I did get to Universal Studios once, but also a friend of mine introduced me to Forrest J. Ackerman, famous Monsters of Filmland guy.
Oh, my.
I got to tour the Acker Mansion back when he had all his stuff in his basement. Now it's in a museum.
Oh,
but I got to see the parts of the dinosaurs that were in King Kong.
Yeah.
I got to see the blasters from Forbidden Planet. He had an amazing library of obscure pulp magazines, and so anyway, it was just I was in seventh heaven wandering through his basement.
Oh man, that would have been quite a historic event to be able to go and see some of those. I have an uncle who used to be a special effects guy back in Hollywood, well before I joined, the trek down there to try to be famous like everybody else. And he did the miniatures for 2,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the underwater
the submarine?
Submarine. That was my uncle's claim to fame. This was a great uncle. He was a German artisan, kind of guy, and he was a prop man, special effects guy in Hollywood for decades before I ever showed up. But it kind of runs in the family there. And Zelia, I bet you've got like a highlight of your career as well is meeting who?
Boy, Steve Ward. Honestly,
that's the highlight. You're gonna have to do better, Jim.
What a compliment!
Gosh, well, I've had, I seriously feel really lucky when I think back on all of the fantastic people I've gotten to meet. Linda Godfrey at age 10 was just, that was a really pivotal point for me.
Wow.
And then, Chad Lewis, and then the rest of Backroads lore crew, Noah Voss and Kevin Lee Nelson, two other really great researchers. It's one of those things where seriously, paranormal researchers have been kind of like my idols. And so seriously, every new one that I get to meet, which as I'm getting more involved with the field, for the longest time, I was kind of just very much on really, really in the research, just books, any TV that I could find. But now as I'm actually getting out there and going to festivals and conferences and being more involved, it's just, I get so excited, for every new researcher I get to meet. So
yeah. And I don't know if you both find it this way yourself, but I swear it's the universe seems to put people in your path that you're interested in. It just kind of happens. You end up meeting people that you have thought about, wanted to meet, or at least a book will show up, and there's a connection with the book or the researcher. I've been just blessed in my life as well, that all of a sudden somebody that I would really love to meet ends up, crossing my paths at one point. And I think it's because, like people attract each other somehow. There's that vibration, the whole idea of, consciousness kind of working together as well. It's a strange thing. And I think we're all on a path to raise the consciousness level on the planet. And probably we need each other to help us do that. I don't know.
I agree. I think that especially the last several years, and of course there's all the classic positive thinking books from Napoleon Hill on, but there's a lot to that. Your focus of attention does seem to bring certain people in, and it's these last several years it's just phenomenal. The people I've met. I had a long dry period between that 1976 MUFON Symposium and my first Mothman Festival in 2006. A couple of psychic fairs, but from 2006 on, it has picked up speed, and it's really been remarkable.
Now, have either one of you had UFO experiences other than the cryptid things? That would be an interesting question to ask.
It's interesting to ask Zelia because she has had interesting experiences, and I have not. I'm not being jealous here. I'm just stating a fact.
All right. Well, I would like to hear that if you want to share it, Zelia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, it's hilarious and also kind of weird to me when I think about it because I have had quite a few experiences in my life with things I can't explain, and I try to be very objective with my research. And so in a way, I almost kind of just added them to the pile of interesting accounts. I never really linked my interest with the experiences I've had. So yeah, I've had a handful of UFO experiences over the course of my life. Probably the most dramatic one, the closest one, was a sighting of 4 perfectly spherical, round, glowing orbs of light. I was with my family, and my mom was actually driving home, and she called us, and she was like, "Go outside, you need to see this." So, took my sisters, we went outside, and hovering over, I live actually on a corner lot, and so hovering directly over the crossroads, only about 2 or 3 stories up, were these 4 perfectly spherical, kind of orange amberish balls of light. And, it was really very surreal, because there was absolutely no sound, there was no craft or anything behind them, but they were just in this perfectly fixed kind of parallelogram formation. And they didn't really reflect any light either, and that's a common thing that I see across a lot of reports. They just kind of were light. It wasn't like they were emitting any light. And so my mom pulled up, and we're all standing there watching them, and one by one they just started blinking slowly, and then they blinked faster, and then they were gone. Absolutely gone. So it wasn't a Chinese lantern. Those things are the bane of my existence, or anything like that. And the best part of this, though, is that, we're standing there kind of still looking around to see if anything else is going to happen. And all of a sudden, this neighbor boy comes tearing through our front yard, and he runs across the street into his house. So we're standing there like, okay, he obviously saw him. So my mom and I walked across the street. This was, I think this was 2011. I forgot to mention that. So this is some years ago now. We walked across the street. We knocked on the door. We're like, did you happen to, see something in the sky? And this kid is petrified. He's like, you guys don't get it. I was at the school playground. It's a couple blocks away. This is the second time they've been over. He said that he was at this playground, and he saw 4 of these lights move overhead. And apparently he was like, okay, well, they're gone now. That's fine. The second time they came over, I guess he probably thought the Martians were landing or something, because that's when he decided that he had had enough. He just absolutely ran home. So that was my closest encounter with, a UFO. And that spurred a special interest I have in anomalous light phenomena. And then I've had several other encounters, some really interesting ones that they were kind of very far away objects that appeared to be almost like bioluminescent, like deep sea creatures. And that was really neat to see. There was a daytime sighting of a really bright, shiny object that, again, it moved in a very organic fashion, as opposed to the very rigid kind of craft-like objects that most people experience. And then further back, my mom and one of her sisters had a really bizarre experience with a UFO that may or may not have included some missing time, and then possibly had a second experience later on that was kind of an out-of-body type experience. So, a few other members of my family, have seen kind of more classic kind of delta-shaped crafts and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
well,
quite a few UFO experiences.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a few follow-up questions on that orb, the 4 orbs there. You might have heard there is a plethora of sighting reports on school grounds of UFOs. I don't know why. Schools and children and stuff seem to draw the interest to UFOs. Did you say that there was a school close to your house, and this kid was running from the school?
Yep, it was several. The school's maybe 5-6 blocks away. I'm terrible with directions. But yeah, it's in pretty close proximity, and apparently he said that, they kind of moved over. So it's the impression that they came, from out of sight in one direction of the horizon and passed directly overhead of the school. There's also a lake in the town where I live, and they were coming from that direction.
Oh.
Which I know that's also been cited as a connection to the orbs.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the school thing is interesting. I've noticed that come up a lot. I know John Keel mentioned it too. And you see it a lot, especially with some of the more bizarre contact cases.
Yes.
They occur around schools.
Yeah, exactly. And not just 1 or 2 kids, but 20, 30, couple hundred kids would see the same thing as well. Yeah. That's been a lot of recent, not recent reports, but recent focus on some of those reports. Now, yeah, the globes or the orbs that you saw, for instance, if you put your thumb out at arm's length, and you were pointing at just one of those globes, would your thumbnail have covered up the globe that you saw in the night sky?
I would not say so. From what I remember, I'm trying to even think of it now. Yeah, the thumbnail definitely wouldn't have covered them at arm's length.
Okay, wait a second. You just kind of contradicted yourself with two statements there. You said the thumbnail would not have covered it up because the globe was too big. Is that what you're saying, to cover it up with your thumb?
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa. Now, see what that does. It gives you some perspective. Either this thing was super close and large, or it was far away and it was huge. So this is a very, anything that's bigger than your thumb at arm's length is quite an interesting sighting report. And you're saying that all four of those were about the same size?
Yeah, they were identical, and they were very, very low. That's why it is, my closest encounter with a UFO object. Because, yeah, they were right near the power lines by the time we saw them. So they were very, very close.
Well, that's kind of significant as well. Obviously, during the power lines, a lot of them are reported around them either getting energy or doing something to the power lines as well. That's wow. And no, you're telling me no sound, right?
Yeah, absolutely soundless.
Yeah.
And right over the crossroads too, which I know Keel brings up both crossroads and power lines. So, yeah, it was definitely very interesting.
And at that period of time, did you have any idea whether there was a missing time event during that sighting for you folks or not?
It's one of those things where I wish I would have made more note of things, because I don't recall there being any time discrepancy. But I also don't really recall taking any special note of that or not.
Yeah.
So.
Very fascinating. Okay. Well, thank you for allowing me to quiz you on that. That's a fascinating report. Now, you said it was a four orbs in what kind of a pattern? Would this have been a rectangular pattern, each of them being in one corner, or what kind of a pattern did they show you at that point?
It was a fixed parallelogram pattern, so they were kind of like offset. The lower ones were further to the left, and then the upper ones kind of skewed. I want to say, maybe, I don't really know. Probably the top degree measurement would have been 120 degrees, skewed in the upper left-hand corner, if that makes sense. So leaning to the right.
Yeah, right. And was it more horizontal shaped, or was it more vertical shaped as a parallelogram?
Horizontal, definitely.
Okay, cool. Very interesting sighting report. And you said that they started blinking on and off and faster, or what? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was just one at a time. It started blinking kind of slowly. I would say maybe, just kind of like off, on, really slow like that. And then all of a sudden just really very rapid. And then one was gone. And then the next one started up, and the next one.
Oh, so this wasn't simultaneous all at once. They kind of similarly did that one by one and blinked out then.
Yeah, kind of like in a staggering sort of way,
Yeah.
And I wish I could remember which one started and which one went, which order they went in. But
no,
it's one of those things that kind of, yeah.
Right. Well, here's the last question then. What was your impression? What was your thought afterwards? And did you have any dreams or ideas of why that was there? Any thoughts that you had about it?
At the time, it was really just, there was an impression of like really just stillness, kind of, in a way. And I don't know if it's, again, I've read so much past this that, you can argue that maybe there was a certain Oz factor going on, or maybe I was just really kind of focusing in on what I was seeing. But it was a very like peaceful, very still, kind of quiet impression. And, it's ironic because then it was after that point in time, because I think I'm pretty sure that was 2011. I'm terrible with remembering dates, unfortunately. And so it was after that time that I really started getting into the more high strangeness accounts and things like that. And, yeah.
Isn't that a coincidence? Isn't that a coincidence? Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing is, one of my earliest encounters with the paranormal was when I was 2 years old. And unfortunately, I don't remember from a first-hand perspective, but my mom remembers it. Apparently, I woke up from a nap, and I was just like sitting in my bedroom, and I pointed at the hallway and asked what that glowing ball was that was out in the hallway. Of course, my mom didn't see anything. So that was one of my earliest encounters. And again, I don't remember it personally, but she remembers me saying that. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I now have a special interest in anomalous light phenomena, especially orbs, because it does seem that they're just so prevalent. Not only as UFOs, but I mean, if you go into ghost phenomena and even cryptid phenomena, they're kind of everywhere that the unexplained is. So,
yeah. Have you ever heard of this place in south central Washington State called Esetti Ranch? James Gilliland's Mount Adams location. If you ever want to experience live orbs, that's the place to go. It's fascinating. Literally, hundreds and hundreds of people every summer will go there looking for UFOs pretty much, but they've got Bigfoot activity and orb activity galore. It's just fascinating to me. There's a couple of people that live in that area. Literally, one of them we know from the UFO I-Team, we call her the Orb Lady. She literally can take her camera out, her video out, and record them on tape pretty much any night of the week. And literally, they've got more than just like, lens flares. This is like very detailed, weird stuff. So it's fascinating to me that you're interested in that.
Man, that sounds really neat. Yeah, but no, I mean, it is. It's just, it is. It's such a prevalent thing, and I don't know. Yeah, it's just, in seeing those two, it's difficult to describe how very surreal it was. Because even though, again, I'm interested in this, always have been, to actually see something that significant and so close, it was really kind of awe-inspiring, honestly.
What would be fascinating for you maybe to do would be to go out and, I don't know if you've probably done this many times, but I would love to see you go out and do a skywatch on your own.
Yeah.
And bring your camera, whatever you got gear with you, because with your positive intention, it's almost like the CE5 protocols, that Dr. Stephen Greer talks about. You can do certain things, but I think people like yourself have, basically the automatic intentions that will draw those kinds of craft in, that you could actually record them potentially on videotape and digital film. So have you ever tried that yourself?
Well, I keep an eye out just because, again, I am interested. It's something that I really want to start doing. And actually, I've been thinking about it a lot lately. So maybe I'll have to give it a shot, see what happens.
Oh, it's so easy to do, especially in these beautiful summer nights, nowadays. You take out your gravity chair and, so you don't crink your neck, and just lay back. You don't even need a pair of binoculars or anything. Typically, I use my peripheral vision just to stare at the night sky. And you'll see satellites galore, of course, and all that kind of stuff. But then you'll see these things making 90-degree turns. And you start going, And, of course, then when you give out that positive intention, hey, please come closer, or will you flare up for me and stuff? You'll be surprised what happens. That's what happens to us anyway. How about you? Have you ever run across that, Stephen, yourself, when you're actually out there trying to find a contact or obviously you haven't had any major sightings yourself, but it's something that it's kind of fun to do every once in a while. Just kind of bring the intention with you that you're going to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You're going to sit there, and if anybody wants to show them to themselves, this is maybe your time.
Well, I was at a CE5 event last night, actually.
Really?
In Brighton, Michigan area. If people want to check them out, they're CE5 Brighton. I've been to a couple of them, and some people thought they were seeing some flashes and so forth. I was always looking in the wrong direction, not naturally. But the people that run it have had some pretty interesting experiences. They've also been out with Stephen Greer. I think they really are experiencing something. I think some of it, we can get more into John Keel, maybe more of a a connection with human consciousness, projection. I'm not sure if they're really contacting ET or not.
Yeah.
There was something very interesting that happened. The lady I was sitting next to, who I know from Michigan MUFON, her tri-field meter and this other meter she had were going crazy. Well, she took some photographs and she just sent them to me today, and you can see part of a hand near the where the meter is, and there's no way it could be her hand as a reflection, because even if it was, it's the wrong side of the hand. It's very hard to kind of describe on the air. But something really bizarre, and even my meter was when they were doing, they do meditations and so forth. They did some stuff with the Tibetan bowl. As they were doing that, my meter went from 1.5 EMF meter very slowly up to 5.9, and then when they stopped, it went down.
Oh my!
I have no explanation for that. I didn't really. I saw one thing that might have been a flash, and I followed it with my night vision goggles. So I still I would like to be out there with them sometime. They've been surrounded by fogs. They had one lady start to spontaneously channel something. They've had some very interesting experiences where they've seen things and experienced things as a group. But I don't know if I'm the guy that just has that natural covering of aluminum foil and I just can't quite break through, or what's going on. So it won't be for lack of trying.
Well, that's for sure, and it sounds like you're due for some major event here. Who knows?
You're damn straight, Michael.
That's right.
Do.
Okay. Well, we're going to take our break here at the top of the hour, and we're going to be right back for the final hour of Spaced Out Sunday in just a moment, so everybody stick with us. We will be right back.
Hey, Space Travelers. This is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm remembering who I am.
Well, welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, Michael W. Hall. Thanks for being with us. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we are also on Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can always check out our archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website, of course, is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and so much more. And boy, are we getting in depth here into the paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, and everything strange and Keelian, John Keelian, with Zelia Edgar and Stephen M. Ward. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on this interesting Sunday night. What is it? We got July 12th, 2020. Can you imagine that the summertime is in full force already? And I think people are getting a little antsy to get out into the good weather, I know, from the lockdown that we've been enforced under. So this should be an interesting summer. By the way, I think I mentioned off the air when we first started the show that the rumor is that the New York Times is potentially this coming week coming out with the follow-up article on their December 16th, 2017 article that literally broke the story from the Department of Defense and the Pentagon that UFOs are real for the first time in history. And supposedly there's going to be another article coming out potentially even this week, pushing that ball even further down the road. I wanted to get you guys' opinion about that whole idea of the government, the military, and the mainstream media even talking about this whole subject now that we used to be relegated into the fringes of, and now we're being thrust into the spotlight, it seems.
Yeah, I've always been a bit cynical about this. I know, and I guess I can't really shake it. I guess I've never thought that, we keep getting these teasers that they're hanging the carrot out. We're gonna, disclosure is imminent, and I've always believed that it's not. And I don't know. I'll be very happy to be proven wrong, but I guess my expectations are very low on this. That we're not going to really get much of anything. And it's funny that. Even though we're starting to get some, and some of the media is paying attention, there are still whole sections of the media that will not take this seriously and will ignore it, and still will do the smile and with the tongue-in-cheek aspect. So I guess I'm just going to have to wait and see. I'm cynical. I don't think the government. I guess I don't think that the elites, the people in power. There's always been a tradition throughout history of those in power that have the information. They keep it to themselves, and the great unwashed, which is us, we don't need to know. We don't deserve to know. And so if they do let anything out, I don't know that we're going to get that much. But the bottom line is, Michael, I'm not sure that they know that much. I mean, they've observed these things like we have.
Yeah.
But are they going to admit, they're out there, but we don't really know what the hell's going on, and we certainly can't control it. So, but we're here, we're the government, we're here to save you and protect you and control you, but we don't know what the hell's going on.
Well, what was your, let's follow up on that, Steve. That's a good conversation. What was your opinion of the New York Times article, that came out December 16th of 2017 for the first time, confirming literally through the Department of Defense and the Pentagon that UFOs exist, that they didn't know what they are, and that they had gun camera footage, the go fast, right, the tic tac, that kind of stuff. And that the Navy has, and then the Navy followed up on later and said, yeah, that's our gun camera footage. We don't know what it is. What was your opinion of that? Do you think that was a nugget of some kind that they were throwing us?
It really stumped me because, again, I mean, Mr. Cynical that believes nothing's going to come out, it doesn't compute. It's like, oh, wait a minute, you're destroying my great theory here, my great belief system. So I just kind of held it in a sort of suspension and kind of a wait and see attitude. I mean, are we going to get more? Are we going to get something to confirm it, or are they going to say, well, it turns out this was some kind of a secret project? Or and I wouldn't even put it past the government. I mean, they're always springing things on us. They're always testing the limits of our belief. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't be surprised if they're simply messing with us to see how we respond. Now, that's pure speculation. And I hope, hopefully, Zelia will have a much more positive outlook on this. But I have been so cynical about because you and I, Michael, have grown up with this for decades. The way that the government has hidden things and ridiculed things, and remember the Dale Spar, the Ohio police officer that chased that UFO across Ohio. I think it was on the turnpike. I mean, he saw this thing take off.
Yeah.
He chased it across Ohio, and one of the heads of one of the people in Project Blue Book told him, matter of factly, you chased the planet Venus.
Right.
You destroyed his life. He lost his wife. He lost his job. It was just been awful. So it's hard for me to get over what they have done for all these years and to trust them. Hopefully, I'm dead wrong, but I don't know. I'm just going to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way of doing it, and it's going to be interesting to see what's going on. I swear, the disclosure of potential truth about UFOs seems to have ramped up big time in the last couple of years that I have never seen in my career, literally starting from 1974, when I was a field investigator for APRO with Jim and Coral Lawrenson's organization out of Arizona. I have never seen the swift revelations that we're seeing recently in this regard. That, for instance, Luis Elizondo in this unidentified television series, that now just started its second season, literally with Tucker Carlson on Fox News.
Say, Tucker Carlson is one of the few pundits that is taking this soberly and interviewing people and not laughing them out of the studio and just taking it very seriously.
And the amazing stuff that's coming out, for instance, this Luis Elizondo, who is in charge of the ATIP program for the Pentagon, actually says, yes, we have downed alien technology. He actually said that on Tucker Carlson. And I'm going, right. Now, when has that ever been confirmed by anybody, let alone a guy who is from the Pentagon working on a project that studied UFOs for $22 million, back in 2012. It's just stunning what's going on here. I have a feeling that the New York Times is going to come out with more information pushing farther down the road the potentiality of the truth of the Admiral Wilson smoking gun memo, which we haven't even gotten into talking about yet. But I have a feeling that is going to be an interesting part of this new article that comes out. Zelia, I don't know how you feel about this whole idea of disclosure and what's going on, but it'd be good to get your input as well.
Boy, well, Steve, if you were hoping I had a more optimistic outlook, unfortunately, I don't really. I do see there's so much with this, because I think that probably, the big secret more than anything may be the fact that, honestly, I wonder how much the government really does know about the whole scope of the phenomena. Again, I am very much into theories of John Keel, and because of that, I'm not entirely convinced that the majority of UFO sightings are physical extraterrestrial vehicles.
Yes, let me interrupt you for a second. That's partly our Zelia and my problem is that Keel really demonstrated that much of this. Now, he actually rejected the ET hypothesis at one point, although he backtracked a little bit. But Zelia and I have been kind of ingrained in this idea that there's other things going on. It's reflective. It has something to do with human consciousness and so forth. So I haven't, and while I've gone away from that, I think we are dealing with others among us. I think, Zelia, don't you think that you and I have that, still have that, call it that John Keel prejudice, if you will, where we're hesitant to make that. But anyway, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, totally fine. No, that's definitely part of it. And two, because I know Keel actually at the end of Trojan Horse even said, I'm not saying that there are no extraterrestrial physical vehicles and extraterrestrial biological entities visiting Earth. He said that he didn't throw that out completely, just that the vast scope of the phenomenon, there's just too much variation and too many different things and too many parallels for that to account for all of it. And so my big issue with disclosure is that, coming from that, in my mind, the majority of all UFO sightings are likely something completely unrelated to physical craft and physical entities. I'm worried that we are accepting a new regime that will become as believed as the fairy lore, of yesteryear, which then morphed, in my opinion, into the belief in the miraculous airships of the Victorian era. And now currently our belief structure is the superior technology of the extraterrestrials, which maybe there is, such a thing as that. Maybe it is visiting Earth. My concern is that we are being led to accept that for all of it. So that's kind of like my big concern with the whole disclosure thing, is that it'll implement a new belief. And, again, it's a very Keelian thing. He said belief is the enemy. And I do stand by that. I try to be really objective. And, as much as I love the phrase I want to believe, honestly, I kind of don't want to have to believe. I really want to just see and observe and know things. So.
May I interject something here? Keel talked a lot about the strange meandering lights, and he thought perhaps that was the real aspect of some of these sightings, and that when people were seeing cryptids and giant UFOs, that they may be being programmed, or they may be simply temporary manifestations, or I love the word transmogrifications of energy. And if you go back in history, though, you've got those strange meandering lights, used to be dragon tracks. And then another time when they believed witches were literally flying on brooms, of course that light was the lantern. And then they were fairy lights. And then we had even the airship, mysterious airships, which Zelia has done a lot of research in. Sometimes they would just see a strange light up in the sky. And then we had the Foo Fighters around World War II. So many of these things are simply lights, and we kind of imprint with the time period what we think they may be, depending on our frame of reference. Keel believed that these things would actually take the shape of the frame of reference. Now, there was a time when like Keel, I rejected the ET hypothesis, but I've backtracked on that. I don't know if it's ET or not. I do think there's an aspect of this where we are definitely dealing with, as Albert Rosales writes in his books, others amongst us. There's something. There does seem to be some kind of a presence, whether it's extra-dimensional or ET or whatever. And I think they interface somehow, but that's another long story. So, yes, it's interesting that I think Zelia and I have that resistance because of Keel did. But he had for good reason, because he talked about so much of this being reflective. And Zelia has recently told some great stories about how Keel would entertain certain bizarre notions sometimes. And then very quickly he would get reports from people that he didn't know fulfilling those bizarre notions. Like Zelia, what was it? He started thinking that these things may be coming from...
Like aquatic. Yeah.
Yes, from the oceans.
Yeah.
And what was it? Sightings of sort of men in black with gills. And I remember there was even a classic Close Encounter of the Third Kind where they saw this alien with a helmet, and he appeared to have gills also. So that's some crazy stuff, Michael, So what do we make of that?
Well, there is an untold story, I think, behind this entire phenomena. Whether it's cryptids, whether it's spectrals, whether it's UFOs, the whole idea is that I believe that there is a group of people on the planet that probably is more in the know than anyone else, and is in control of whatever knowledge we have, probably not complete knowledge, but there is such a control mechanism on what the truth is. You wonder why it's been so highly classified and so kept a secret for over 70 years. what it leads me to believe is that the truth is so shocking, potentially, so shocking, that if it is let out of what's really going on, that literally people and probably society would not be able to handle it at all. Otherwise, you would seem to think, okay, visitors from another planet, that's not so shocking. When you're talking about the universe and how large it is, it's just incredible to think that we would be the only life in the entire universe. So life on other planets is not shocking. But what if the truth is more Keelian, more shocking than ever? That's the only thing that shows me that there has been a cover-up for so long. But then on the flip side, I'm wondering what the heck is going on with this disclosure that's happening right now that's unprecedented. I've never seen this happen in mainstream media, the New York Times, Fox News, CNN, and television series coming out relatively quickly. So it's an exciting time to be alive, for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of good has come, even branching out into the different TV shows and things like that, even if they aren't, perfectly accurate most of the time. It is making this topic more approachable for people. And I do think that's something very good that's coming from all of this, is that people who, may never have told anyone about their encounter, whether it's with a UFO or, haunting type activity or with a cryptid, it's becoming more accessible and more okay to talk about, in my experience at least. So I think that there is definitely some good that can come from it. Whatever the larger scheme is, I don't know. But, on the face of it, there's definitely that. So.
And Michael, I could be just full of it, and maybe we will have some disclosure, and I'll have egg on my face. But then that's perfectly fine with me. I enjoy having egg on my face. It happens so often.
Yeah, well, me too. I'm totally at ease with failing in public. I've done that many times, but that's the only way you really kind of get bold enough to step out and get some new information. But I often think about as well is that when we look back in history of our planet and we see the forbidden archaeology, the fact that probably our planet is a lot older, and even civilization on the planet is a lot older than we ever thought of it being. And the whole idea that back in antiquity, it seems to me that the gods, whoever they were actually having more close relationships with people. The Egyptians, the Sumerians, the gods were local. They were there. You would sacrifice things to the gods, and you would actually go to the gods for problems and, things that you needed to have done. The gods would actually create these potential monuments that are on the planet. And then at one point, it seems to be in our history that the gods just went somewhere. They're not as prevalent as they used to be in our society, like they were back in the pantheon days of the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Sumerians. You wonder what that's all about, and whether potentially we're getting to a point where maybe they're going to come back.
Well, I used to be kind of an ancient alien snob. I would remember when Chariots of the Gods first came out, Eric von Daniken, and it was a big splash. And then they found that he had made some mistakes and so forth. And he's in his more recent edition, he has a long introduction where he talks about his youthful exuberance and how he did make some earlier mistakes, but there's. When you look back, and sometimes we give too much credit to alien beings or whatever for constructing all these things, and that mankind isn't capable. But on the other hand, you look at some of the remarkable things that have been recorded and have happened in the past. You do have to wonder how the heck did they do that? So I'm a little more open. I even enjoy the watching Ancient Aliens sometimes. Now, don't tell anybody that I actually watch the show occasionally, because I was such a snob with my nose in the air. But it is, and of course they get out. They get a little bit out on the limb and do some, whenever they talk about ancient alien theorists, I kind of cringe a little bit. But it's still a very interesting idea. And Michael J. Carter, who's a gentleman, Reverend Michael J. Carter, who's a reverend that appears on Ancient Aliens sometimes, was on my show, and a great guy. And he told me how what a great time he had with Eric Von Daniken. And one night they really pretty much tied one on. He said Eric can really put it away, and he just laughed, and he said we got drunk together one night. It was a great story.
Now, would that be an experience or what, to get drunk with Eric Von Daniken? Oh my!
Absolutely, that's on my bucket list.
Oh my! Well, we're going to be,
and I don't drink.
Yeah, well, there you go. You might make an exception for Eric Von Daniken. We're going to take our last break, folks, and we're going to be back for the final half hour of Spaced Out Sunday in just a moment.
Need that weekend's supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website, and let's figure out what's going on together.
Hey Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
And we are back, folks, with Zelia Edgar and Stephen Ward. And boy, we have 1.5 hour left to go here on Spaced Out Sunday, and we are, I think, just scratching the surface. But I want to get, before we get any farther here, you guys, I want to make sure that we have the opportunity right up front here to let people know how they can find your podcasts, your broadcasts, and your websites and those kinds of things. Zelia, let's start with you. How would people find some of your quality work out there, which is very unusual, and I think people need to make sure that they capture you on some of your podcasts?
Well, thank you. Pretty much if you just go to my website, justanothertinfoilhat.com, and that's all one word, no spaces, that'll have links to everything that I am possibly doing, speaking engagements, my videos on YouTube, and my podcast. And the podcast is on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. That's also called Just Another Tinfoil Hat. And new episodes every other Monday. All the past episodes are available on Podbean. And then my YouTube channel is, strap on your seatbelts for this, it's also called Just Another Tinfoil Hat. So that's also my YouTube channel. And I also have a page on Facebook under the same name, if you can believe that as well.
I like it. You're consistent. Just Another Tinfoil Hat. That is cool. And you are all over the place, so that's very nice that people can find you that way. Stephen, go ahead and plug your availability as well.
Just Steve Ward on Facebook. If you type in Battle Creek along with it, because I live near there, I think you can find the right Steve Ward. You can hear me every 2 weeks on Paranormal UK Radio, the High Strangeness Factor, a podcast. Also, you can hear me weekly as a correspondent on Mac Maloney's Military X-Files. You can find that on the same network and all over the place. And I do speaking engagements now and then, Mothman Festival when it's running, and Zelia and I will both be speaking at the Van Meter Visitor Festival at the end of September in Van Meter, Iowa. So, and I should have a speaking engagement in Toledo as well. So just actually what is shocking, Michael, is, the day that you Google your name and stuff actually comes up. So that actually happens with me with some of my past shows and so forth.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think that maybe your great-great-grandkids are going to be Googling your name one day and see your face out there and go, hey, I know that guy. I'm related to him. He was a big deal back in those days. You know, that's you're going to live forever on the internet.
Or they might say, not related to that guy. Don't know who the hell he is.
Yeah, well, the way things are going with disclosure, it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm hoping that at one point, you guys, we as researchers and ufologists and paranormal cryptid people will eventually become irrelevant. All of this stuff will be out in the open. Everyone will know it and take it with a grain of salt and have put things together as far as everything connected. So that's going to be fascinating to me to see what my kids come up with in the future as far as how they're going to live their lives on this strange little planet.
Well, you know, Michael, I should also mention that I'm actually co-writing a book with Joey Medea. It's just that the book probably won't be out till 2040, so I don't always mention it. But it's going to be called, a bit of an exaggeration, it will be called Parallels and Patterns, a New Paradigm for the Study of Paranormal Phenomena. It's the kind of thing that both Zelia and I are into is connecting the dots, past and present, and also in things going on now in certain areas. What are the patterns? What are the connections? And it surprises me that some people are, which is fine to specialize in a certain area, but it still surprises me that sometimes people say, oh, wow, I never thought about that. I never thought about, when you mentioned Bigfoot and UFOs that Ron Moorhead is studying the connection. Well, if you go back to 1973, 74, southwestern Pennsylvania, Stan Gordon was collecting reports of the same thing, very bizarre Bigfoot reports, but in conjunction with some kind of a light or craft or something like that. So that's the stuff that's the most fascinating to me.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think it's going to be all, like Jacques Vallée says, he's going to be very surprised if it's just aliens from another planet. It's going to be much more complicated than that. But
right.
Have both of you found during this whole worldwide lockdown, the COVID-19 scare and all this stuff that we are becoming more closer together as a community in the paranormal? I'm finding that to be the case in some respects, where literally people from the UK are talking with people in the United States on a routine basis through Zoom and Skype and all these podcasts nowadays. I don't know that we've ever had this opportunity in the past as far as technology goes.
I think there is a lot of that, but go ahead, Zelia.
Oh, yeah, I just absolutely agree. I think that, I know throughout this quarantine, it's kind of ironic because I think I've been busier than ever with all of the paranormal stuff. Just because, we have Zoom, Skype, you can talk to people anywhere in the world. And, I think, too, that as a lot of stuff has kind of come to a halt, people kind of are turning to their interests a little bit more. So I know it's kind of a bummer with all the stuff that's been canceled throughout this, but I do hope that on the research side of things and the interest side of things, it might be kicking up a little bit more. So I'm optimistic about that.
On the other hand, there's no substitute for the events themselves. And I remember my excitement going to the 2006 Mothman Festival after a long dry period, and my wife was laughing because I had one of these grins from ear to ear. Just being in the midst of this area. I had been to Point Pleasant once before in 1977 after I read John Keel's book, but that was like 29 years later, and since then in meeting people in person at these conferences, there's as good as it is that we have this technology where we can get together. Boy, there's just no substitute for a good conference where you can interact, see people speak, and make those kind of connections.
Yeah, I kind of liken it to the fact that we all remember and hear about the stories of our founding fathers and mothers, getting together, at the beginning of our country out here and trying to figure out, what were they really like when they were in those congresses together, and who were the personalities, that were making the things happen. You're right, Steve. It's like, unless you're there at the conference, seeing the personalities and how they interact with one another is invaluable. You can do all the research in the world, read all their books, but when you're sitting there next to Edgar Mitchell, you get to watch him and how he talks, and the conviction in his style of speech. Anybody else, Stanton Friedman, and those kinds of things. It's just astonishing what you learn just being in the same proximity of people who have got the experience that you relish as well.
Well, I met Kathleen Marden, who was Betty Hill's niece.
Yes.
At the Exeter UFO Festival. And I have kind of a scoop here. She, of course, co-wrote Captured with Stanton Friedman. I got to meet him a year before that. Finally, I had seen Stanton Friedman live on TV in the late 60s on something called the Lou Gordon Show on a Sunday night.
Oh, wow.
Back in the days when you had to be in the studio.
Yeah.
They didn't do satellite stuff. And I reminded him about that because he was on with Betty Hill and Philip Klass, of all people, the master debunker.
Oh, my.
But he was very, very nuts and bolts. He wouldn't deviate from that. But Kathleen Marden, who actually, when you look at the Barney and Betty Hill story, the stuff that happened to them afterwards is far stranger than their abduction experience. And you can find that out in Captured and some of the old articles in Flying Saucer Review. But Kathleen said that Stanton was actually drifting a little bit away from the strict, nuts and bolts aspect and opening up more to the, call it paranormal or the high strangeness factor. And that's, he never seemed to let that out. But that was very interesting, that it was because of really her influence and her, talking about and I even asked him about it once. When I first met him, I said, Stanton, what about that weird stuff that Betty and Barney Hill experienced afterwards? And, I can't do a Stanton Friedman, but he said something like, I don't know, So he didn't have an explanation. He just kind of blew me off. But it was great. It was great talking to him, and he told me some stories about Philip Klass, and it was really, really great to meet him.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Quickly, the other thing about these conferences, for example, you go to the Mothman Festival. You can go out to the infamous TNT area a few miles north of there, where the Mothman was allegedly seen the first time. You can. I got lost in the hollers south of there, trying to find the road that John Keel with Mary Heyer, the reporter that he allied himself with, when they watched the strange lights going overhead. So you get to some of these places, and you can actually go and walk around and go to some of the places where people experienced these things. So hopefully that will be coming back in the near future.
You got to correct me if I'm wrong. It just popped into my brain. Was John Keel involved at all with the Indrid Cold character?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay, because I knew there was a connection there. Oh, my word, what an incredible chapter that whole thing is. And I don't know if you've seen the Netflix series called Hellier. Yes. Oh, my word. I had no idea who Indrid Cold was until I started binging on Hellier. And all of a sudden, I'm down a rabbit hole with John Keel and Indrid Cold.
Indrid showed up before Mothman did, actually.
Really?
Woodrow Derenberger had his experience just a few days, early in November, I think it was. And also, but that's a very complex story. And Zelia, jump in here anytime you want. Some aspects of Woodrow Derenberger's story seemed to be legitimate, but then later on he kind of embellished things when he got more into his visits to Lanulos and the scantily clad ladies that were there, which would have been an interesting planet to visit, I guess.
Not only scantily clad, but it was routine that you didn't have to wear clothes.
Yeah, it sounds like you save money on that clothing bill, and laundry, all that stuff. But there were the thing is that there were other encounters very similar. In fact, before Derenberger came out with his story, Mary Heyer got a story from a guy that had a very similar experience where he's going down Route 77, sees this elongated craft kind of cut him off, and he stops, and he has this really bizarre, pointless conversation with this gentleman with his arms folded. I got the impression, I don't know what Indrid exactly looked like, but he actually bore a vague resemblance, Zelia, wouldn't you say, to some of the Men in Black reports, although he wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say nearly identical, like how he was described as looking and acting.
And later on, Keel got another report from a professional lady he called Mrs. Bryant, I think, in Gallipolis, Ohio, which is across the river. She had an encounter with a couple men, very, very Indrid Cold-like men, although they didn't identify themselves as Indrid. And she actually saw them walking around on Main Street. It just freaked her out. She was having all kinds of strange experiences on her farm as well.
Oh, my.
Haunting experiences, cattle mutilations, strange craft moving overhead. That's one thing that John Keel talked about a lot, was his catchphrase of, ask the contactee, the experiencer, what he or she had for breakfast. And what he meant was that he found that people that were having these close encounter experiences or abduction experiences were also experiencing everything. I talked to a lady in New Hampshire. She was experiencing shadow people, classic haunting phenomena. Her boys were seeing orbs inside and outside the house. And it's just, you have to ask more questions, because he found that if you're just narrow in your approach, you're going to miss quite a bit.
Yeah.
But,
and this Indrid Cold character, for people who might not even know what we're talking about, the idea that this was supposedly an extraterrestrial that literally lands in a saucer, comes up to people in their car and is able to communicate with them telepathically initially and stuff, had a face that some people claim had a perpetual smile on him as well. Yes. Remember that?
The grinning man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, that, not to get into a whole nother rabbit hole, but that goes to the whole idea of Valiant Thor, this guy who literally lived for 3 years at the Pentagon, who was supposedly from Venus, and landed in, I think it was West Virginia somewhere, in a saucer in front of these two state patrolmen, and they ended up bringing him to the Pentagon.
Well, there's allegedly photographs of him.
Yeah, oh yeah.
At the Howard Menger, another classic contactee, at his farm in High Bridge, New Jersey. And but a friend of mine, John Frick, did some research. He got a hold of some of Howard Menger's relatives, and they said that they thought that those photographs were actually of some actors out of New York City. And it wasn't really anybody named Valiant Thor, but that's another long story that Reverend Frank Stranges, he's the one that claimed that he contacted Valiant Thor at the Pentagon. Now, that's either a fascinating story or it's a line of BS, and people can make their own decisions.
Yeah, it is a fascinating story. These are, of course, a little after the traditional contactees of the 50s. This was the 60s. Yes. And people were literally talking about conversing with occupants from flying saucers that landed, back then. And, of course, you've got George Adamski and George Van Tassel and all those guys even before them. But it's fascinating when you think about some of those characters literally having an in to the Vatican, the Pope, having an audience with George Adamski and wanting to know what I think it was the Venusians that George Adamski was talking with. And then, of course, the story that President Eisenhower and Vice President Richard Nixon met with Valiant Thor, and they hosted him for 3 years at the Pentagon. And all these weird things seem to, be real. I don't know.
Well, some of that stuff was hoaxes created by Gray Barker of Saucerian Publications, out of West Virginia, and James Mosley, editor of Saucer News. They would get blasted drunk, and they got a hold of some State Department stationery, and they sent a letter to George Adamski, supposedly from a guy named R.E. Straith, made it sound, legitimate, and say that we really appreciate the work you're doing. Of course, we can't talk about it officially, but, so you have to be careful. A lot of these things were started by those guys. And when you talk about contact, Zelia was doing some research into are you familiar with the Joe Symington and his pancakes in Wisconsin?
No,
Michael?
No.
Zelia, maybe you could tell that story real quick.
It's my absolute favorite case, actually, of contact with UFO occupants. Happened in April of '61. Joe Symington of Eagle River, Wisconsin, was eating his breakfast when he heard this noise outside. He said it sounded like knobby tires on wet pavement. And so he looked outside and he saw this classic, really just super duper cliche UFO kind of flying saucer type thing. It was kind of shaped like two really bright, shiny silver balls, unconnected, and it had exhaust pipes all around the rim. And so he walked outside to take a look at it. It was floating over his backyard. All of a sudden this hatch opens, and inside he sees 3 very small men. He said that they looked like they were Italian, wearing 2-piece black turtleneck suits and little black caps. And so one approaches him and hands him this really shiny object. It looks like it's made out of the same material that the saucer's made out of. And it's kind of like a goblet. And so somehow Symington just, figures out that they need water. So he goes, fills it up with water, which is just so cliche. Wisconsin is a strange place, and it is exemplified in this story. UFO lands, Joe Symington is, they need water. He gets them water, brings it back, and then he notices that one of the guys appears to be cooking something on a flameless grill. So Symington kind of points, what are they doing? Well, apparently the leader, who was apparently wearing a slightly different outfit, it had red trim on the side of his pants, took that as, he wants a sample of the infamous alien pancakes. So Symington was given 3 or 4 of these pancakes. In all honesty, they look horrible. They don't look like pancakes at all. They're kind of more these bizarre, foamy, cracker-like objects. Again, just a super-duper bizarre case when viewed through the lens of modern ufology, which is large and by two. No one really wanted to take it. The Air Force actually did investigate it. Hynek investigated it and found Symington to be a reliable witness. Unfortunately, when the pancakes were analyzed, they contained earthly materials. So apparently it was put to bed. The UFO researchers just decided they didn't want to deal with it because it sounds crazy. But then, of course, Jacques Vallée becomes involved and looks at the case and makes the connection to the many cases of flatbread given to people by the fairies. You have another folkloric element in the exchange of water for something in return. So again, it's these really bizarre cases that seem just so random and so strange that have these kernels of, truth, for lack of a better word, that have kind of echoed throughout the ages.
And Zelia, the Air Force actually examined the pancakes. Tell Michael what was missing in the ingredients to pancakes that were harmful to fairies.
Yeah, this is actually kind of the pièce de résistance of that, is the fact that the pancakes apparently were made out of buckwheat hulls, something like Crisco or lard. However, there was absolutely no salt at all in the pancakes. Not even the normal amount that would just be found in these everyday ingredients. And of course, that ties into fairy lore. Fairies are unable to tolerate salt. And then on the flip side, though, you have men in black who've been seen actually eating salt, taking it with pills and stuff like that. But again, it's just these really bizarre little tiny details in these encounters that, it adds up to something. What? I'm not exactly sure.
And if you look at the encounter in modern day, as bizarre as it is, if it's real, it's got to be E.T. But 100 or 200 years ago, they would have said the fairies visited Joe Symington, even though they showed up in a strange metal chariot.
Oh, yeah. That stories like that, you would think all the strange lore that we have in our society have maybe a nugget of truth of some kind. But I have heard that pancake story. Now that you've refreshed my memory, I didn't know the details, though. Joe Symington. Oh, my gosh.
You can find him telling his story on old YouTube videos.
Oh.
And he talked about how he would never go for a ride with them because their food tasted so terrible.
Yeah, because he actually tried on the pancakes, barring any concerns about, intergalactic viruses. So it tasted like cardboard.
Oh, my
goodness. There's a condition of UFOs gathering up water, and sometimes even in buckets, but also through hoses and so forth.
Of course.
It's another connection. It's another continual motif.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you two, I tell you what, we have gone 3 solid hours tonight. Thank you so much for staying up late with me here on Spaced Out Sunday. This has really been a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Michael. This has been fun.
And
thank you so much. I had a fantastic time. So.
We're going to have you guys come back again. And if anything ever happens that you have to get something out real quickly, just give me a call. We'll get you on anytime in the future, because this has been fascinating for me. So thank you for all your help with Space Out Sunday. And we will be right back. Actually, next week, we'll be back for another 3-hour episode of Spaced Out Sunday. Good night, everyone.
There once was a man who had some land in eastern Washington. And on his land, this man, he had a deep, dark hole upon. People came from miles around to throw their trash down in to see how deep the hole was and listen for its end. Then one day, that fateful day, they forced Mel off his land. They paid him off and sent him off down under with a plan. They hid Mel's hole and covered it up so ne'er it could be found, so no one would ever know what's deep down in Mel's ground. Yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-oh, there's no bottom to Mel's hole. So if you chance to find yourself...
Well, I want to remind everyone that Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. You can find more information and music at bumblefoot.com. A special thanks to everyone listening at home tonight, in your cars and at work and in the chat rooms, and wherever you are around the world. Remember, this show is currently copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thanks for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Good night, everyone. We'll see you next Sunday.